So first off, absolutely loved the Outrun. I just thought it was beautiful from start to finish. So thank you for making it.
Thank you. Thanks for watching.
Um, what inspired you to adapt Amy's book for film?
Well, the book itself, mostly, I would say. I got sent the book with Saoirse already attached to star and produce. So I had the benefit of reading the book with her in mind, you know. And the book is quite tricky to adapt. I think for the first half, I thought it's impossible because it is a very internal book. It started off as a collection of internet essays, like a blog, and so it's very personal. It's almost like you read someone's diary, you know, and it jumps back and forth in time, sometimes four different time layers in one sentence. And so I thought it's unadaptable. But the further I read the book, you know, with Saoirse in mind and that incredible setting and everything, I thought, well, maybe it is adaptable. It's just a massive creative challenge to sort of tame this beast, you know, that is so free floating into a narrative feature film.
Um, it is being very internal and being a very personal story. What like that in itself is a challenge to bring to the screen, but what like approach did you take to that to like trying to figure this out?
I mean, I knew that I had to spend some time alone with the book. We had a few sessions with Saoirse and Amy together, you know, where we tried to get on the same page. I pitched sort of my approach, how I would structure the film, and we created a name for the character because that was very, very, very important for me, that for the sake of the three of us, we create another entity and we're not reproducing or imitating a direct version of Amy. However, I knew because it is her biopic and English is my second language and I've never been to the Orkney Islands, I needed to have some time with myself and the book. And I was living in LA at that time and had this writing scholarship at the Thomas Mann House. So I spent, you know, I think months actually color coding the book in different sections. Orkney, London, folklore, scientific facts, childhood, teenager times. And then I went through it again and wrote down the things that need to be in the movie on different cards in the same colors. So I ended up with a bunch of colored card piles. And then I spent days arranging them. And then I wrote the speech sheet, and I think then we started the creative process. But because it is not my personal story, you know, it was very, very important to have some, yeah, time alone with the book, almost, I would say, some creative solitude in order to then engage. And from that moment on, we worked together really, really closely, the three of us.
That makes sense for sure. I kind of want to ask you like how many different piles you had, but I feel like that is not something that you can count.
Well, it was maybe 8 or 9 or something, you know. It was
Oh,
sound, and childhood, teenager times, Orkney, London, folklore, scientific facts, some things that I couldn't categorize. So it weren't too many, but some were very high, obviously. Orkney and London mostly were the highest because there was so much richness, you know, about little moments. And we had to then really be very, very hard and pick and choose just the moments that we thought, okay, they have to make it in the film.
right. So in creating Saoirse's character, how did you decide to name her Rona?
So we got together on a Zoom. I think that was our first Zoom, the three of us. And then Amy pitched some names because, you know, I'm not familiar with Scottish names, so I have no idea. And she pitched a few, and Rona is a tiny island behind the horizon when you sit on the outrun. But it also is very close to Ronan, right? Saoirse Ronan. Actually, Ronan means little seal. So there's a nice connection. And it's also an anagram to Nora, you know. So then we were like, okay, yeah, that's a beautiful name. Let's do this. And it gave us the freedom to create somebody who's, a version of Amy's writing, but then Saoirse brought so much from herself into it. And, I had the freedom to give input to, yeah, I think we all just felt a healthy creative distance to have a different personality be the main character, not Amy.
That just that makes so much sense. Like when you dissect it like that. Because sometimes it's like, oh, the name's cool, but like when you actually add all these layers on, it just kind of adds to like the like poetry of the film almost. So that's very cool.
Yeah.
Um, when people watch the Outrun, what do you hope they take away from it?
Depends on who watches it, I think people who have suffered from addiction or are in the process of recovery or anything close to that, I hope that it gives hope, because I think Amy's story is ultimately an extremely powerful story of hope and strength, and somebody, who made tough choices to heal. But I also hope that for people who don't suffer from any addiction or don't have any relationship with it, that it creates some sort of understanding of how tough the process of recovery can be. It's not linear. It's not like you look from the outside, don't have a drinking problem. You go like, well, you're sober for 6 months. That's great. Now get out, get a life. But for people in the situation, sometimes even after years, it's one day at a time. And sometimes the hardest part starts when rehab stops. Because, while you're still in rehab, you have structure, and you have things to do. And then comes the scary part, everyday life, where you have to make it. And so there's the line in the movie where Rona says, I don't think I can be happy sober.
Mm.
And I think that's a bit sort of almost like the core struggle of her recovery journey, this question of, can she be happy sober? So, and of course, I hope they take away curiosity about going to the Orkney Islands or something,
Definitely a beautiful place. If I
or
get the
going wild swimming.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Awesome. Um, I am almost out of time, but before I let you go, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, I think it really, I mean, I'm happy to answer one more question. I have a 5-minute break between the two interviews. If there's anything that you want to ask about, then go ahead. If you have the feeling you've covered, well, then
Yeah,
no.
no, I just not so much a question, but like there's a specific line that stuck out to me. It never gets easy, it just gets less hard. And obviously that's very applicable to the characters, but that's something that I think everyone can live by almost. So
Yeah, and it was very moving because the actor who's playing Callum, he has never acted before, like many of the characters in the film. We used lots of locals, friends of Amy, people, the real people from Orkney. And, it is his story, his personal story. So when I sat down for coffee and I said, hey, Amy asked if you want to be part of the movie, you're sort of this Orkney entity almost, the beachcomber. He was, I think, a bit surprised, but also baffled, but also proud, maybe, to take on this challenge. And then he said this line to me during the coffee, and I said, may I ask you, can we please use it for the movie, because it's so powerful.
mhm.
So it comes from the bottom of his heart, I think, in his experience of being many, many, many years sober.
That I absolutely just loved it. And now hearing that it was added in, that's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, you probably felt the truth in it, with which he delivers it also, because it's his line, his life.
I love that. Um, but yeah, that's kind of all that I had for you.
Fantastic.
It was great meeting
Well,
you.
thanks for talking. Great meeting you too.